Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for taking time to watch this training. My name is Deborah Fun, and I'm a PMP certified project management professional. I created this video because I noticed that a lot of people are preparing for project management roles and certification, but many haven't had the opportunity to use project management tools like Trello, Jira, Microsoft, Monday.com, ClickUp, and Asana, which is what we're training today. So I noticed this gap that after the hustle and bustle of trying to get your PMP certification, you now try to also get a job. People apply for job, and then you now see where you ask if you're able to use project management tools like the ones I've mentioned above, and you realize that there's a gap there. You're certified, but when the recruiters are picking, they'll pick people that have used most of these tools or are conversant with these tools. And at the end of the day, we see that that's the major gap there. So I decided that we have to get this training ongoing. It's kind of easy to use. It's just like your regular Microsoft Words, your Excel, your PowerPoint. If you're able to use that as a project manager, you should also be able to use your tools. You should be acquainted to your tools as well. So in this session, I'll walk you through Asana from the beginning. We'll build a project together step by step. And my goal is that by the end of this video, you'll feel confident enough to start using it yourself. Before we dive in, I just want to set a few expectations. This training is designed for beginners. So if you've never opened Asana before, that's completely fine. I'm going to keep everything practical and easy to follow. So instead of just showing you different features, we'll create a real project together so you can see how everything fits into the way project managers actually work. By the end of this training, you know what Asana is, how to create a project, how to organize your work using tasks and sections, assigning responsibilities, setting deadlines, and monitoring progress. More importantly, I want you to leave this session feeling comfortable enough to open Asana on your own and start building projects. I'll also appreciate if you're able to create projects on your own. You send me things you've done on your own using Asana. And I think I'll be happy to have that. At least I know that, you know. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a quick introduction to Asana and take a look around the interface. Then we'll create a project from scratch and explore the key features you'll use most often. Finally, I'll share a few practical tips and best practice that can help you work more efficiently using Asana. So have a seat and welcome on board. Now that we've gone through our agenda, let's begin by understanding what Asana is. If this is your first time using Asana, don't worry. By the end of this video, you'll know how to create and organize a project with confidence. So, what is Asana? Asana is a work management and project management platform that helps individual and team plan, organize, assign, track, and complete work in one place. Think about how many times you've managed work using WhatsApp messages, emails, Excel sheets, sticky notes, or even a notebook. Those methods can work for small tasks, but as a project becomes more complex, it becomes difficult to know who is responsible for what has been completed, and what is overdue. Asana solves that problem by bringing everything into one workspace. It gives you visibility into your project so you can see the tasks, who's responsible for them, when they are due, and how the project is progressing. As a project manager, one of our biggest responsibilities is making sure that work is organized and everyone understands what they need to do. That's exactly where Asana becomes valuable. So whether you're managing a training, planning an event, launching a product, or coordinating a team, Asana helps you stay organized and keeps everyone aligned. Let's use a simple example. Imagine you're planning a PMP revision workshop, for example. There are many activities involved. So, you need to create the agenda, you need to design a flyer, you need to invite participants, you need to prepare the presentation, you need to confirm the venue or online meeting links. Then you need to also send reminders and collect feedback after the workshop. You could keep all this, you could keep all of that in your head or spread it across different apps, but that is very risky. So with Asana, you can keep all of these activities together in one project, assign responsibilities, set deadline, and track progress from start to finish. That's exactly what we are going to build together in this tutorial. Now that we understand what Asana is and why project managers use it, let's take a look at the interface so you know where everything is before you start creating your project. Now that we understand what Asana is and why it is such a useful tool for project managers, let's take a few minutes to get familiar with the interface. One mistake many beginners make is jumping straight into creating a project without first understanding the workspace. Spending a few minutes getting comfortable with the layout will make it much easier to navigate Asana as we get along. So don't worry about memorizing everything. The goal is simple, to know where the main features are and what they are used for. Let's start with the navigation panel on the left, where you have your home button, inbox, and the rest. Think of this as your control center. From here, you can move between different areas of Asana. This is the home page. It is your personal dashboard and usually first thing you'll see when you sign in. Depending on your activity, you may see recent projects, tasks you've worked on, reminders or updates from your team. Think of this as a quick snapshot of what's happening before you dive into your work. So, as a project manager, I like to check the home page first because that gives me an overview of what's happening before I start work. So, you could see I have uh, other task that is here that has deadline for Wednesday, right? So this is the overview of what's going on here on my page. Then we'll move over to the tax. That's my tax. And in my opinion, this is one of the most useful areas in Asana. As the name suggests, this page brings together all the tasks assigned to you from every project you've been involved in. So instead of opening multiple projects to see what needs your attention, Asana gives you one place to manage your own work. So you could see on my own page like other tasks that are here. So in one page I could see everything that is going on, you know. Yeah. For the inbox, think of it as your notification center. So whenever someone assigns you a task or comments on your work or mentions you or updates a project you are part of, those notifications will appear here. So instead of checking emails all the time, you can simply come to your inbox, stay updated. For projects, a project is where all the work related to a specific goal is organized. For example, if I were planning a PMP workshop, I would create one project for that workshop. If I were launching a new product, that would be a separate project. So inside each project, we'll organize tasks, assign responsibilities, set deadlines, and monitor progress. So you can see already different projects that I have here. So it's just for me to click on it and it takes me directly to uh, the project I need. So one of the most important buttons in Asana is the create button. This is where you can create a new project, tasks, and other work items. In just a moment, we'll use these buttons to build our first project from scratch. So before moving on, let's quickly recap what we have covered. We've looked at the home page, where you can get an overview of your work. We explore my tasks, which brings all your assigned work into one place. We saw the inbox where notifications and updates are stored. We also looked at projects where the actual work is organized. Finally, we identify the create button, which is this, which we'll use to build our first project. Throughout this training, we are not going to use random examples. Instead, we are going to build a real project together. So, our advice, maybe you could stop this video at some point, kind of like download Asana, log into it, and we can do this together. Throughout this training, we are not going to use random examples. Instead, we are going to build a real project together. Our project will be called PMP Study Group Workshop. Imagine you've been asked to organize a workshop for PMP aspirants. There are several activities that need to happen before the workshop is successful: planning the content, promoting the event, registering participants, delivering training, and collecting feedback after all. So instead of trying to manage all of that in WhatsApp or Excel, we are going to use Asana to keep everything organized. So to create a new project, you click on the create button. You choose project. So Asana give us a few different options, but today we'll create a project from scratch. This will help you understand how everything fits together. So we're going to choose on your right. You're going to see where you have blank project. We'll click on it. Then we are going to name our project. Let's call it PMP Study Group Workshop. Yeah, I already have that already. Click on continue, scroll down, and then so the first thing Asana asks for is the project name. Always give your project a name that clearly describes what it is about. So a good project name helps every team member immediately understand the purpose of the project. So congratulations, great projects. We just created our first project. At first glance, the page may look quite empty, but that's completely normal. Think of it as a blank office before a team moves in. We now have the space where we organize all the work related to this project. So at the top, you'll see our project name, which is the PMP Study Group Workshop. Then you could see our tasks. This is where all the tasks for this project will be created and managed. Across the top are different views such as your list, your board, your calendar or timeline, and your dashboard, right? This gives us different ways to look at the same project depending on what we're trying to accomplish. So before we start adding tasks, I want to introduce one of the most important concepts in Asana, which is the section, this add session. Think of this session as a folder or category within your project. They help you group related work together. Without session, all your tasks would appear in one long list and as your project grows, it becomes difficult to find information. So by organizing tasks into sections, which we have here, your project becomes much easier to read, manage, and track. Imagine you're organizing a wedding. You might have one section for planning, another for vendor, another for the ceremony, another for the reception. You're still working on one project, but you've grouped similar activities together. So that's what we're going to do here. For our workshop project, we organize our work into project phase. So we'll click on the add session. What we're going to do here, we'll use this as our planning because we need to plan for this project. Sorry, planning. I didn't spell that correct. So planning is where we'll define the objective of the workshop, identify our audience, and prepare the overall approach. So the next session will add our preparation because that's the next thing we'll be doing. We need to prepare for it, right? So preparation is where we'll create the training materials, promote the workshop, and get everything ready before the event. So the next session we'll add will be our execution. Execution covers the actual delivery of the workshop. So we'll create another, which is our monitoring. This is where we'll monitor what's going on in our project. So monitoring is where we'll track registration, attendance, and resolve any issue that comes up. Then our last session will be closing. So finally, the closing section includes activities such as sharing resource, collecting feedback, and formally closing our project. So we've created the structure of our project. Think of it as building the shelves before placing the books on them. The next step is to populate each section with the work that needs to be completed. So a project manager doesn't just jump straight into execution, right? We start by planning because good planning reduces confusion. It helps us identify risks early and gives the team a clear direction. So we'll go to our next step. This actually shows us what we've created for for our project. We've now created the structure of our project using sections. The next step is to add the actual work that needs to be completed. So in Asana, each piece of work is called tasks. So under planning, we have a task for planning. So a task is a specific activities that needs to be completed in order to move the project forward. Think of a project as a book. The sessions are like the chapters, and the tasks are the individual pages that makes up those chapters. So every project, no matter how large or small, is simply a collection of tasks working together towards a common goal. One mistake beginners often make is creating tasks that are too broad or unclear. No, we're not going to do that. For example, imagine I created a task called training. That's not very helpful because it doesn't tell me exactly what needs to be done. A good task should describe one specific action. So, for example, defining the training objective, you understand, design promotional flyers, that's a task. Prepare presentation slide, that's a task. Send reminder email, that's a task. So, notice how the sections starts with action words like define, design, prepare, and send. That's a good habit because anyone looking at the task immediately understand what needs to be done. So for our planning, our first task will be us defining our training objective. Training objective because before we create any training, we need to be clear about what participants should learn by the end of this session. So I click on enter. Our task now has been created, but it's not complete yet. The task name alone usually isn't enough. So let's open it and add more information. So this is it. We click on it. On your right, you see it gives us an assignee, a due date, dependencies, and the rest. So you could see our task. At the top, the task name. This should always be short, clear, and action oriented. Anyone looking at this tag should immediately understand what work needs to be completed. So for our description, we have description down here on what this task is. So we're going to say our description is for us to, sorry, let me use a capital later, is for us to define the learning objective, target, target audience, expected outcome, whatever it is you want to describe it. And let me see, and course scope.
for Asana training. So that's what we're doing, right? We're doing a training. That's our project. It's a workshop. So the description provides additional context. Think of it as an as instruction for the task. If another team members open the task, they should understand exactly what is expected without having to ask for clarification. So clear task description reduce misunderstanding. It improves communication and help the team deliver work more consistently. So we'll now go to assigning. So this is my list of assigning. Depending on who it is, you could let me add myself as assigning. This task is assigned to me. So every task should have one person who is accountable for ensuring it gets completed. Even if the other people contribute, there should always be one clear owner. If no one owns a task, everyone assumes someone else will do it. And that is when the work starts falling through cracks. So if you actually open your Asana and then you could actually see, oh, Deborah is the assigned, she's the owner of this tax, right? So you know that, oh, the person that owns this tax, and then we'll go to due date. So choose a due date. When do you think that this date should be completed? As in, you have to put a due date. So let me put on the 15th. By the 15th of this month, this particular tax should have been completed. So deadline helps us prioritize works and keeps the project moving. Without due date, it is difficult to know what needs immediate attention and what can wait. So if you go down, we have subtasks. So that's left for you. We have an attachment. So attachment, if this task requires supporting documents, right? Like maybe you have to for you to define the training objective, there will be an attachment to read. So that someone can read, okay, this task has been done. For us to see that the task has been done, you actually check the attachment. If the task requires supporting documents such as training outline, drafts, presentation, or requires or a requirement document. So I can just attach them directly to the task. So if I click on attachments, it takes me to my folder, choose folder. I could pick anything and say, whatever it is, let me just put this, for example, as my attachment. So it shows that I have an attachment that tells me what exactly the task is all about. I have an attachment that defines the training objective. So this keeps everything related to the task in one place. Finally, we have comments. So instead of just sending email back and forth, you understand, team member can ask questions, share updates. So this is where you have your add comments. See our add comment here. Yeah, team member can just share their updates and communicate directly within the task. So this creates a clear history of conversation, which especially which is especially useful when multiple people are working on the same project. So I could write the comments when it's not realistic, right? I'm just saying, just trying to type something. When will this start? So instead of us to be going on mail back and forth, everything could just be here. Once you click on it, you see that we have a comment here by Jiget by me. So let's pause for a moment. In just one task, we've captured what needs to be done, who is responsible, when it should be completed, and the supporting information needed to complete it successfully. Imagine managing an entire project this way. Every task contains information your team needs, making it much easier to stay organized and collaborate effectively. One lesson I've learned from managing projects is that many projects issues don't happen because people aren't working hard. They happen because expectations aren't clear. A well-defined task with a clear owner and due date goes a long way in preventing that. So we can see that we already have a comment, we have an attachment. So if the due date is on Wednesday, by Wednesday you could see, oh, there's an attachment to this, that means this was done. And let's say, for example, if I've completed this particular task under planning, I'll click on, since I'm on, I click on mark complete. So it actually shows that my project is on track. So having this now, we could go to check our board, could see that we have this already. So now that we've created our first task, let's talk about something that project management managers do regularly. Breaking large tasks or breaking large piece of work into smaller manageable activities. In project management, we know that some deliverables are too large to be completed in a single task. So when a task contains multiple steps or activities, we can use subtasks in Asana to organize that work. So we'll go to our next task, which is, our next subsection, which is the preparing preparing training materials. So we'll just write here, prepare training materials. Prepare training materials. At first glance, this looks like one task, but when you think about what is actually involved, there are several activities behind this, right? So we need to create slides, we need to prepare the Asana demonstration, we need to write the speaker's notes, we need to test our recording setup. So instead of just putting all of these activity into one task description, we can break them down into subtasks, is what we're going to do. So we're going to go to our subtasks. Let me just put our signing for this, which is still Deborah. Due date should be, say, Thursday. Yeah, enter. Then we'll add our subtasks. So we could add our subtasks like what are we going to do for this in preparing the training material. The first thing is for us to create our PowerPoint slides. So the first subtask is creating the PowerPoint slide. This is a specific piece of work that contributes to completing the main task. So our subtask 2 will be for us to build a Sana demo projects. Sorry for the build. So the second task is building the projects we'll demonstrate. So this is a separate work that needs attention, so it deserves its own tracking. So the next subtask, I will try to be as short as possible, will be us preparing the speaker's notes. So we'll say prepare speaker's notes. Prepare speaker's notes. This help ensures that the presentation flows well and the message is clear. So we'll also do our next task, this will be our last subtask, sorry, which is us testing. That's test recording steps. Sorry, setup. So the final subtask is testing the recording setup, because recording any training, we want to make sure that our microphone, our screen sharing, and software are working properly. Notice the relationship between the main task and the subtask. The main task is the overall outcome we want to achieve, preparing the training materials. The subtasks are the smaller activities that helps us achieve the outcome. Once all subtasks are completed, we can consider the main task completed. Just like regular tasks, subtasks can also have honors and deadline. This is useful because different people may be responsible for different parts of the work. So we already created our honor, which is me. We selected our due dates. Yeah, let's say 16. And even though the activities are connected, they may have different completion dates. So, assigning responsibilities and deadlines help us manage work more effectively. From a project management perspective, this is similar to creating a work breakdown structure or our WBS. A work breakdown structure helps us break a large project deliverables into smaller, more manageable components. So Asana subtasks helps us apply that same thinking when managing work. For example, if our project was organizing a conference, the task could be organize the venue. The subtypes might include identifying possible venues, request quotation, evaluation options, confirming booking. Breaking work down this way makes the project easier to plan, assign, and track. Now that we understand how to create tasks and break them down into small activities, the next step is making sure that the right people are responsible for the right work. So we'll look at assigning the tasks and managing honors in Asana. Now that we've learned how to create tasks and break them into small activities, let's talk about ownership. In project management, every activity should have someone responsible for making sure it gets completed. In project management, every activity should have someone responsible for making sure it gets completed. A common challenge in project is when everyone is involved but no one is clearly accountable. When that happens, tasks can be delayed because people assume someone else is handling them. Asana helps solve this by allowing us to assign tasks to specific people and track responsibilities. So let's go to So the assignee is the person responsible for completing the task. Notice that assigning a task doesn't mean that the person has to work alone. Other team members can still collaborate, provide input, or support the activities. However, having one clear owner removes confusion and makes accountability clear. These connect directly to project management concepts like the responsibility assignment matrix, also known as the RACI matrix. In a RACI framework, we want we want clarity around who's responsible, who is accountable, who needs to be consulted, and who needs to be informed. While Asana doesn't replace a RACI matrix, assigning tasks helps us create visibility around responsibilities. The next important element is due date. A task without a deadline is simply an intention. A task without a deadline is simply an intention. A deadline gives the team targets to work towards. When setting deadline, it's important to be realistic. The date should be considered the date should consider the amount of work involved, dependency, and available resource. Let me give you a good example. When managing deadline, avoid randomly assigning dates. A good project manager considers questions like how long would this activity realistically take? You need to know that. You also have to think of does this task depend on another task being completed first? Are there enough resources available? Once you can answer this question, then you can actually set a realistic date. So good scheduling is not about just choosing dates like we did earlier. No, it's about creating a realistic plan. So this is where your team comes together. You can actually say, okay, for us to under planning, we are defining our project objective. How long does it take? You understand? So after this is being done, do you understand? Do we need to finish defining our training objective before we can prepare our training materials? Under training materials, what are the subtasks under it for us to get our training materials ready or the task for that completed? So that is that. So we now have creating dependencies. So on your right, you could see dependency. So if I need to write my dependency will be that I need to define my training objective first before I can start the task on preparing training material. So immediately you could see that it's blocked by FS, finish to start, which means that our definition of training objective has to finish before we can start preparing our training materials. So sometimes tasks are connected, meaning one activities needs to happen before another begins. These are called dependency. For example, in our training project, we cannot deliver the workshop until the presentation slide has been completed. So the workshop delivery depends on preparation of the material. So the next thing will be for us to track our status. Another useful practice is keeping task status up to date. A task can move from not start to in progress and finally completed. Keeping status updated gives the project manager visibility of what is happening without needing to ask every team member individually. So imagine you're managing a training event with a team of 5 people. One person is responsible for marketing, another is responsible for preparing material, another is responsible for registration. So by assigning tasks and setting deadline in Asana, everyone knows their responsibility, and you as the project manager can quickly see the overall progress. So let's summarize what we've learned so far. We've learned how to assign tasks to owners. We've learned how to set a realistic deadline. We've understand dependency and track progress. This simple action helps transform Asana from just a task list into a project management system. Now that our tax owners and deadline, Now that our tasks have owners and deadline, the next thing we need to understand is how to communicate and collaborate with Asana. A project is not just managed by tasks alone. Successful projects requires effective teamwork. So the next thing we're going to look at is the comment section. So you can see we already have the assigning, we have our due date, we already have our dependencies. So you could write your description, right? If there's a description on what this preparing materials is, I'm not going to do that. So below it, we have our subtasks. We've already talked about what needs to be done for preparing the materials to be ready. Inside this, you could actually put your assigning as we talked earlier. Okay, oh, so I am the one that needs to create the power slides. Since I'm the one preparing the material, I need to build I need to actually build the Asana demo, right? After that, okay, I use HSE. Let's say our HSE manager is in charge of that. Let's put our due date for, let's say, Thursday. For this, click Thursday, click on enter. So our dependency for this is that, let's add our dependency. So for this, we need to uh, create our PowerPoint slide before we can build an Asana demo for the project. So that will be our dependency. So after all that is said and done, we will now go to our collaboration in Asana. So let's open one of our tasks that we have here, which is under planning, which is our defining the training objective. We need to define our training objective. Now that we've understand how to create tasks, assign responsibilities, set deadline, let's look at how team collaborate inside Asana. So a manager spends a lot of time communicating, sharing updates, clarifying requirements, answering questions, and making decisions. The challenge in many organizations is that project information is spread across emails, WhatsApp messages, meetings, Teams, and different documents. When information is scattered, it becomes difficult to know the latest updates or find important decisions. So Asana helps solve this by keeping communication connected to the actual work. So if you scroll down under our tags, you could see where we have comments. So there's a comment here that says, when will this start? Let's say someone is asking, when will the project start, or when will this task start, right? Or we go to let me use a new substack that doesn't have that. You scroll down, you could see add comments. The first collaboration feature we'll look at is the comments, which is right in front of us. Comments allow team members to communicate directly within a task. So instead of sending separate email, asking for an update or clarification, we can have the conversation here where everyone working on the task can see it. This comment is now attached to the task. Anyone who have access to this task can see the discussion and understand the context behind it. From project management, From project management perspective, this supports effective communication management. The goal is to make sure that the right information reach the right people at the right time. So, depending on the people that needs to be in this particular project or in charge of this project, once you come down, you click on the tags on it, you go to comment, you could see everything that was discussed, questions that have been asked, okay, things that you need to know about the project. So under the comment section, if I want to ask someone a question, I could say at, let me say compliance. Yeah, so I'm trying to chat compliance directly in the comment section. And when I use the add button, compliance comment, I type the name of the person I need. We can also mention to notify a specific person. For example, if I need a team member to review something, I can mention them directly, like I did. So I mention compliance. Okay, let's say that's compliance. Let me use John. Let's say at John. So he's asking me to invite. That's because I don't have any John yet. But let me use compliance since I already have compliance. So whoever is in compliance that use the email at compliance knows that, oh, this they are talking this message is directly to me, right? So let me say at compliance, please review the training agenda and share feedback. So this helps avoid unnecessary meetings and make communication more targeted. So I'm gonna send the comments. So mainly I send the comments, right? Compliance get the notification immediately if they are on Asana, right? And they see, oh, that's directed to them. Then everybody in the group can check what's happening. So if compliance actually replies me back, it shows there under our comments what communication was and all that. So the next thing we are going to look at is attachments. We have attachments here. Projects usually involve different documents requirements, presentation, reports, images, or reference material. So instead of storing these files separately and asking people to search through emails, we can attach relevant files directly to the tax. So for this tax, if the maybe let's say compliance was able to review the agenda and schedule, or let's say for the training material, Let's say we ask HSC to do that, and HSC wants, or maybe I want to send what I was able to do from the training material. I'll just click on the plus button, choose a file. I'll just take any document from here, and that will be our training material, right? That was being prepared. So if I had drafted it as a PowerPoint, I could actually go to click on it, go to the PowerPoint, and yeah, I can go to the PowerPoint and click on it, and then it's loaded. So anybody that is in this on this space sheet, you understand, on Asana in my group can actually click on it and see, oh, this was ready, oh, this is what was done. So anyone working on this task knows exactly where to find the latest version of it. So if there's a latest one, we can do it, you can take it off and so on. The next thing is task updates. Another advantage of keeping communication inside the task is that Asana creates a history of activities. We can see when tasks were created, when assignments were changed, when files were added, when updates were made. This creates transparency and makes it easier to understand what happened during the project. So, for example, let's imagine we are preparing this PMP workshop, and a team member is responsible for presentation slides, which is under the subtasks. So they can upload the draft slide, mention the reviewer, receive feedback, make changes, and update the task all in one place. Let's go here. So we see now. Let's give a due date for this. Let's make it 18th so that it looks realistic. Then we already have a dependency here. So you could say subtasks. This is an attachment. So we could actually add that. They can upload the draft slide, monitor the reviewer, and receive feedback. As a project manager, I don't need to search through different conversations to understand the status. Everything is connected to the work. So if I come towards this part and I go straight to create PowerPoint slide, I will be able to see the attachments on the slide. Let me see if I should have a slide somewhere to attach here. Let's see. Okay, so this is a PowerPoint. Let's say, for example, that is it, right? I have it there. So one best practice I recommend is communicate where the work happens. So if you're trying to talk about, instead of it to just be all over, right? If you want to talk about creating PowerPoint, which is one of the subtasks, you go straight there and talk about it there. If you're trying to talk about, you have a comment under building Asana demo project, you just go straight here. If it has to do with preparation on the speaker's notes, you just go straight here. If it is you testing the record setup, you go straight here. And with their assignees attached and their deadline, it makes all realistic and easy to trace. So if the conversation is about a specific task, keep the conversation inside the task. This makes information easier to find and help the team stay organized. So today we looked at how Asana supports teamwork through comments, mentions, attachments, and activities tracking. Remember, project management is not only about planning the work, it is about keeping the people aligned while the work is happening. Now that we've created tasks, assigned owners, and learn how to collaborate, the next step is to understand how we monitor the progress of our work. This is where Asana View become very useful. So now that we've created our project, added tasks, assigned responsibilities, and learn how to collaborate, let's look at one of the features that make Asana powerful: project view. The project manager does not always look at a project in the same way. Sometimes we need to see a list of activities, sometimes we need a visual workflow, and sometimes we need to understand the project schedule. Asana allows us to view the same project in different formats depending on what we need to understand. So that is where we go to, like we could see our list view, could see, sorry, under planning what we have here, you could see our assignees and you could see our deadline. So this usually this is usually the default when you create a project. List view displays your project as a structured list of tasks organized under sections. So you see our section, which is planning. You see our tasks, which is defined training objective, preparing training materials. We see our assignees, right? This is the people that are assigned for this task, and we see our due dates. So here we can quickly see what work needs to be completed, who is responsible, and when it is due. List view is very useful during project planning because it gives us a clear overview of all activities in the project. So as a project manager, I would use this view when reviewing project scope, checking task owners, or updating task details. For a PMP study group workshop, I can quickly see all activities under planning, preparation, execution, monitoring, and closing. I can identify missing tasks, update deadlines, and make sure every activity has owner, which we've done above. So if you go to your board view, which is on your right, the next on your right from list, click on it. Board view uses a card-based format similar to our Kanban board. So Kanban is a visual way of managing work by showing tasks as cards moving through different stages. Each task becomes a card that can be moved from one stage to another. For example, a task can move from not started to in progress and then to completed. So if we go down, you could see all our cards. We can move them around. So you can move this to preparation. Just scatter them around, but I don't want to do that, right? So I'm just trying to show you that it's a board. You could say, okay, oh, this is where we are, or you can take this one up, and so on and so forth. So you could move it around. So you can see everything about it under this once you click it. So it's just our Kanban board. So board view is especially useful when managing workflows where tasks move through different stages. For example, recruitment process, software development, marketing campaigns, creations. The next thing we'll look at is our timeline. I would have said calendar. I don't have calendar fixed here unless I have to add that. So I have space for calendar. Yeah, so this is our calendar. So let's go to our next. Let me move it to yeah. I don't want to move. I want to move it here. Good. So the next thing we have is our calendar. So calendar helps us view our tasks based on their due date. So you could see that. Let me take it. So you can see our tasks based on the due date. That on Wednesday, our task for defining project should be completed by that time. So that is that for our calendar. So instead of looking at the list of activities, we can see when work is planned to happen, when their due dates are getting close by. This is useful because project managers needs to understand workload and timing. If too many important activities are scheduled for the same week, we may need to adjust the plan. So, for example, let's say preparing and all of them were together in the same deadline. I think I have something like that. Let me open it and see. So you could see that on this particular. Let me add calendar here. I didn't add calendar because so under calendar you could see that we had a lot of activities going on right on the same date. So we could actually play around it and maybe adjust. If you couldn't meet up, you can move it to the next date. So that's what it is. If too many important activities are scheduled for the same week, we may need to adjust the plan. So for our training project, we can see if, when the slide needs to be completed, when promotion should happen, when the workshop itself should take place. This is another project. This is not it, but we'll go to our own. We'll see from our own. Yeah, because we don't have much. That's why it's this way. I took us there so that we could see it. So the next thing we'll be looking at will be timeline, right? Timeline view provides a visual representation of the project schedule. It's similar to Gantt chart. So a Gantt chart shows activities across timeline, helping project managers understand when tasks start, when they finish, and how activities relate to each other. So here we can see the planned duration of activities and identify where tasks overlaps. Timeline view is also useful when managing dependency. A dependency means that one activity relies on another activity being completed first. So you could see that this has to be done before we could start this. Finish to start. So we cannot deliver the PMP workshop before presentation. We cannot start defining our training projects. We cannot start preparing our training materials without finishing our training objective, defining our training objective. So that's what it means here. So the workshop deliveries depend on completing our definition of training objective before we can start the task for preparing our training materials. So let's quickly compare these views. So list view, let's start from list. List view is the best for detailed task management. Bird view is best for visual workflow management. Our calendar is best for understanding deadlines and schedules. Then our timeline is best for planning the project schedule and understanding relation between activities. So in my experience, there isn't one perfect view for every situation. A good project manager must choose the view that answers the question they currently have. So if I'm reviewing tax and ownership, I may use the list view. I need to know who's tax, you understand? So if I need to know who is the tax and who is the owner and the deadline, I just go straight to my list view to have that at a glance. If I'm checking for workflow, I will need to use my board view to see the workflow, right? Which is in my planning. I know, okay, this is it, this is the workflow of it, planning, preparation, execution. So if I'm to review schedule, if I'm reviewing the schedule, I may now have to use my timeline. This is it. So in this lesson, we've explored the different ways of Asana, in the different ways that Asana allow us to visualize our project. Understanding this view helps us move beyond simply managing tasks and start managing the project as a whole. Now that we know how to organize the visual, now that we know how to organize and visualize our work, the next step is learning how to track project progress and understand whether our project is moving in the right direction. So far, we've created our project structure, added tasks, assigned responsibilities, and explored different ways to view our work. But a project manager's job doesn't stop at planning. Once the project starts, we need to monitor progress and make sure the project is moving towards its objective. This is where the project tracking becomes important. Asana helps us create visibility by showing what has been completed, what is currently in progress, and what requires attention. So, for example, create PowerPoint slide. Let's go to our top stacks under this. The simplest way to track a progress in Asana is by updating the status of the task. When a task is completed, we can mark it as complete. So we have mark as complete here. So let me mark the completion button to show that that is completed. But before that is completed, I need to show that I think I've marked this completed, right? Defining our training objective. Okay. So you could see how it looks like when creating PowerPoint is completed. So when a task is completed, we can mark it as complete as we did earlier. When I mark this task as complete, Asana records that the activities has been finished and updates the overall project visibility. It may seem like a small action, but keeping tasks updated is very important. If team members complete work but don't update the status, the project manager does not have an accurate picture of the progress. Good project tracking depends on accurate information. Not every task will be completed immediately. Many tasks will move through different stages. For example, a task may be planned, currently being worked on, waiting for review, or completed. So that's where you could write that in the comment section. Okay, this is where we are. You're waiting for review, or you're waiting for approval or something. Regular updates helps the project manager understands where attention is needed. Another useful feature in Asana is project status update. This allows the project manager to communicate the overall health of the project. Instead of updating every stakeholders individually, you can provide summary of where the project stands. So let's do that. Okay. I try to use AI for that, but let me just copy that and that is it. So you could see our summary for it. I did a summary. The task centers on the development of the training materials, specifically requiring a formal review of the training agenda by the compliance departments. Deborah and Fon has initiated this review process to ensure that content aligns with necessary blah 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 blah, blah as written there, right? I don't want to waste our time. So that's that. So instead of me telling people individually, once you come there, you could see in the comments that's our progress. You understand? Everybody could have a glance of where we are and what is up to date. So the project is currently on track. So if I want to, let's go to the status of this. Let me check the status of this project. Let's set our status. So now once together, you can see that our project is on track. We we have already done what is needed before the deadline. So the project is currently on track. Training materials have been completed. Participant registration is ongoing, and let's say that could be our comments. Right, we'll put that in the comments and all that. if we need to do that, so that people could just see that, oh, this is where we are, and things done. So a good status update should tell the stakeholder what has been completed, what is currently happening, any risks or challenges, what happens next. So we'll be identifying risks. As a project manager, we also need to pay attention to risks and issues. Asana helps us track these activities by creating dedicated tasks or section. So example, we create tasks, confirm speakers availability. For example, if we're organizing a workshop, speakers availability could be a risk. We can create a task, assign honor, and track it until it is resolved. So we have a dashboard and reporting. So depending on your Asana plan, you may also have access to reporting dashboard, which is this. This is our dashboard, right? So you can see that we have a total of 6 tasks. We have 4 completed and 2 not completed. It, it tells you where we are. So you could see our chart, what's completed and what's not completed. So that gives us an overview. So dashboard provides a visual summary of the project information such as the task completions, workloads, and in progress. Sorry, let me go up. This type of visibility is especially useful when reporting to sponsors, managers, or senior leadership because they usually need a high level view rather than every individual task. So imagine your MD asks, how is the PMP workshop preparation going? Instead of manually checking different documents or asking multiples of people, Asana gives you a central place to review progress and provide an accurate update. One important habit I recommend is managing project updates as part of your routine. A project plan is only useful when it reflects reality. If tasks, deadline, and status are not up to date, the information becomes unreliable. So, yeah, I need to tell my MD the progress so far for the workshop. It's for just to come here and give them a view of what it is, our tasks, and the task that is incomplete and the rest. So that's just it. So in this lesson, we've learned how to track progress in Asana by completing tasks, updating status, communicating project health, and maintaining visibility. Remember, the purpose of project tracking is not just to report progress. It is to help us identify problems early and take action. So now that we understand how to monitor our projects, the final steps is learning some best practice that will help you use Asana more effectively as a project manager. We've covered a lot in this training. We've learned what Asana is, how to create projects, how to add tasks, assign responsibilities, collaborate with a team, and track progress. Before we finish, I want to share some best practice that will help you get the most value from Asana. Remember, a tool is as effective as the way we use it. Good project management habits are what makes the difference. The first best practice is keeping your project organized. As project grows, the number of tasks can increase quickly. So, without structure, it becomes difficult to find information and understand what is happening. Use section, clear naming, and logical grouping to keep your project easy to navigate. In our project, we use planning. Let me go there. So in our project, we use planning, preparation, execution, monitoring, and closing. The second best practice is creating clear task names. Avoid vague task names like meeting, work on slide, or follow up. A good task name should clearly describe the action that needs to happen. For example, we have our tasks here: define training objective, identify target audience, create project plans. That's under the section planning. So avoid things like meeting. So instead of you to use meeting, use schedule project kickoff meeting. Instead of it to use slides, use review and finalize training presentation. So clear tasks reduce confusion and help team members understand expectation. The third practice is making sure every task has a owner. A task without an owner is a task that may easily be forgotten. So assigning responsibilities, create accountabilities, and give everyone clarity about their roles. One mistake I see people make is using project management tools as their personal to-do lists. Asana is much more powerful than that. It helps us manage scope, timelines, responsibilities, communication, and progress. So a project manager, our goal is not just to complete tasks. Our goal is to deliver project objectives successfully. Another important habit is keeping your project information current. Update complete tasks, adjust deadlines when needed, and communicate changes. So if you could see that our task is our latest update. You can see we're on track. So you ensure that it's updated. So you could see that these ones for the planning, they've all been done. So the next task is preparation, which I think our next deadline should be around 22nd of July. So you could actually see that we're on track in our tasks. So this is our overview of what we've done. This actually tells us that our update status is on track. We have our summary. This is where you can click, put your summary, you can put your next step. Oh, the next step we're looking forward to is our preparation, blah blah blah. And our team can see everything right on the overview board. So update complete tasks, adjust deadline when needed, and communicate changes. An outdated project plan can create false picture of reality. Remember that different views serve different purposes. Use the list view when you need tax details. So this is our list view. If you need to know the tax details, you come here. Everything is clear. If you scroll down, to see our tax details. We went down to closing, right? Our closing has share recording, collect feedbacks, and we closing our project. Then, if you're looking for where you could manage your workflow, so you use the board. Board view is for managing workflow. This is our workflow, right? It's just so far, and it tells us our deadline for it. Use calendar view when focusing on deadlines. So if you want to see if you're on track, if there's any pending tasks, you understand there's some dependent tasks or things that needs to be done. That's where you use calendar to focus on your deadlines. Then use timeline when planning schedules and dependency. So this is our timeline. So you could see what is dependent on which. This has to finish for this to start. Same as this has to finish for this to start. So timeline helps us to when planning our schedules and dependency. My final advice is this: don't wait until you become a project manager before learning these tools. No. The difference between understanding project management concepts and becoming effective as a project manager is being able to apply those concepts in real situation. So tools like Asana help bridge the gap. Congratulations! You've reached the end of this beginner's guide to Asana for project managers. Today, we've covered how to create projects, organize tasks, assign responsibilities, collaborate with teams, track progress, and apply project management best practice. Oh, I forgot to show you our dashboard. So, this is our dashboard at the end of the day. When you want to send it to management, because management will not want to hear the details, they just need an overview of your project progress. So, this is it. You could show them this. Yeah, so we have 4 tasks completed. We still have like 17 incomplete. It tells you where we are and it helps you see everything. This is our chart so far. So this is what our our board looks like. So today we've covered a lot. I hope this training has given you confidence to start using Asana in your own project. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to sharing more practical project management tools and tips with you. Bye for now.